Yo, what's going on guys, Alex here and welcome back to another Division video, and oh my gosh am I hyped today. This video that you're about to see is quite possibly one of the best Division videos we have had in a very long time. Basically today, this morning in fact, GameSpot Italy leaked this Division trailer. It wasn't supposed to go out, I did see it but I didn't make a video on it simply because out of respect for Ubisoft and Massive I wasn't going to cover a video that wasn't officially supposed to be out. However, they have now uploaded it. You can find a link to the official trailer in the description box down below. The trailer is called Agent Journey, and it basically ties together a lot of questions we've had. As you guys know, up until now, we put out a lot of videos. Most of the gameplay we've seen has been in the dark zone. We've seen very short snippets in sort of like the open world, typically 20-30 second videos like on blog posts or anything. But this video here contains a lot of good stuff. It's got cutscenes, it's got open world, it's got loads and loads of new things. It answers a lot of questions we've had. So in short, I'm here to break it all down for you. I don't want to waste any more time because it is a 3-minute trailer. But there's a lot of stuff to talk about, so this is probably going to be quite a long video. Either way, sit back, enjoy this, and let's get started.
When you first joined the Division, what were you expecting? I'm sure they told you about the sacrifices you'd make. Things you might have to do one day. But none of us could have ever predicted this.
Alright, so I'm going to stop it here first of all. Of course, anything you saw just before this was sort of cinematics, cutscenes and whatnot. And it does go to show that we will still have some cutscenes in the Division. They are going to keep them to a minimum, they have said before, because they don't want to kind of break the immersion. And ideally, most of the stuff will be done with you in control. However, there will still be some cutscenes, and you got a very quick glimpse of that there. There are some more throughout this trailer, and you will see them. But the reason I'm pausing here is because this bridge here, specifically where we're standing here, is in Brooklyn. I did a video a while ago following up on that blog post on the French Ubisoft site, speaking about how they mentioned both Manhattan and Brooklyn and how that should hopefully confirm that we'll be able to access both areas. However, since then they did remove that entry from the blog post. Some people therefore assumed that that meant Brooklyn had been removed. However, this scene right here is actually right here on Google Maps. I'll leave a Google Maps link in the description box down below as well for those of you guys that want to check it out. But this is most definitely in Brooklyn. So the fact they're showing more Brooklyn in this trailer must indicate that we can still go there. Whether or not we can explore it as openly as we can explore Manhattan will of course remain to be seen. It could well just be like a starting area or a smaller area, but either way, Brooklyn is still in the game.
Now, if there's any chance of putting the pieces of our city back together, then this is all up to you.
Alright, so now things are starting to get interesting. This is of course a look at the base of operations. The agent was just about to walk into it, and this is the first look inside. If we skip over to the next scene, you'll see this right here. It says up at the top, base restoration 0%. And you've got medical wing offline, tech wing offline, and security wing offline. And if we zoom in down below, you can see that there are 3 different mission requirements. For example, the tech wing requires you complete the mission Subway Extension Mortuary, or the security wing, for example, requires you complete the mission Lincoln Tunnel Checkpoint. There's also one underneath medical wing, but the character's in the way. But either way, you can see here that all 3 wings are initially offline. You need to complete a mission, and I imagine upon doing so, that will then allow you to kind of like activate or reconstruct that particular wing. And of course, we do know those 3 wings correspond to the 3 different columns in the skill tree. You have medical, you have tech, and you have security. And they said in a previous intelligence annex that in order to unlock skills, you have to progress through the game. So I would therefore imagine that the further you upgrade these wings, the more skills you get. Of course, you can see over to the right hand side, it says security wing is offline. So I imagine this board up here is like your kind of progress checker. You can basically walk in, look up there, see at a quick glance just sort of how much things are upgraded, but you'll actually have to go to those specific wings in the base.
This place was destroyed, but over time, we can make it our home. From here.
And then moving on from there, this is of course a shot at the base now upgrading. Obviously I imagine this is sort of like further in the game, the agent must have, completed some missions, upgraded different wings, and it's now starting to take shape.
Countless missions across the city in search.
If I pause it here, this further goes to reinforce what I was saying before. On the left hand side, you can see that the tech wing is now at 30%. And of course, those percentage intervals can also be seen in the skill tree. So again, if you scan down the side, you can see there is a percentage completion on the skill tree, so this must therefore correspond to these sections in the base of operations. To the right you have control room. I imagine this must be where you go to get some missions or something, but either way, moving on from there.
Doctors, former cops, engineers, people who can help us rebuild the world.
Now stopping here for a minute, this is something completely new. This is something we have heard nothing about, but this on the left hand side says K9 unit. Now if I'm going to offer up my opinion on what I think this could be, it could well be Given that it's blue, I would imagine it's tied to security, and if you remember on that French blog post, they also had descriptions for the actual wings. It's not just sort of like a passive thing that is tied to upgrading skills, they also have wider effects. So for example, upgrading the medical thing is for healing people in the city, upgraded security supposedly bolsters, like reinforcements and things, so I would imagine therefore you might see more police patrolling around the area, and of course technology will have its purpose. But the fact that this is blue and it's tied to security, I'm therefore going to hazard a guess that what it could be is that when you actually upgrade the canine units, you might find that patrols of, say, NPC police officers, you might find them wandering around the area to protect civilians, they might also have canines. I honestly think that's more likely than us actually having a dog companion, simply because the people you have at your side are always going to be human players. You will either be playing this game solo or you'll be playing it with friends. You won't have like AI teammates that will be there just like shooting alongside you. So the chances of actually having a dog, given that we haven't seen any to date, I think are pretty slim. So this is probably something more tied to NPCs, but either way, that is definitely something new.
Out there, you'll need all your training and equipment.
Now, this one here, I want to pause for a second because the top left-hand corner is really, really interesting. You see up there it says Bounty Iceman. Now, one of the things I said before when I was talking about the end game for the Division and kind of like speculating about, things that I think could be in there and things that I think should be in there, one of the things I did say that I wanted to see were things like bounties. Because of course we know we have missions, we have medical missions, we have security missions, we have tech missions. But on top of that, you want activities that maybe they kind of crop up on a weekly basis, maybe they crop up daily. Either way, things that aren't necessarily single completion. You finish a mission, you don't really necessarily have a need to go back and do it again. But bounties, for example, it could be something like we log in every morning and there are new bounties and new targets for us to go and find. Either way, this is pretty exciting. We don't know yet how these are implemented. We don't know whether there are still a finite number of these or whether these are recurring daily or weekly events. But either way, this is something new.
With every battle won, you'll become stronger.
Come at me!
And if we pause there for a second, this is a modified version of the sticky grenade, because of course we know the sticky grenade is a gun that lets you fire out a grenade, it sticks to a target and then explodes shortly after. This, however, sets the ground alight, so that's clearly a modified version of that one, which does deal AoE damage.
With every challenge met.
Next up, we get a quick look at how the looting system will work. Of course, you can walk over to items, you can inspect them before you pick them up if you want to, in case you don't necessarily have room in your bag or something like that. Either way, you can see it from there, and you can then go on to either loot the item, equip the item, or of course you can then cancel it and discard it there and then. Moving on from there, we then get a look at another brand new screen. This is something we've heard about before, but we haven't actually seen. You may remember in a recent video I explained how the kind of attribute system works. You of course have firearms, you have stamina, and you have electronics. If you want a more detailed look at that, I'll link that video in the description box down below. But basically at the top you can see these in action. And these different attribute points are distributed by the gear that you wear. And they'll also have an effect on your weapon. So for example here, the enhanced ACRE, if we take a look down in the bottom right hand corner, you can see it has a talent and it has a lock by it. It says there that the critical hits increase the signature skill resources by 1%. And as mentioned before, if you want to unlock talents, you have to have the correct distribution of attribute points. So in this case, this agent clearly doesn't have the right distribution and hence the talent is not active. We're then going to super quick look at the weapon mod screen, but we've seen that before.
Spend enough time on your own, and you'll understand the truth. You will die alone if we don't stand together. Other agents have set up safe houses throughout the city. You'll need.
Now this is another interesting thing. It seems from the gameplay we've seen so far that the base of operations appears to be like a personal thing. You wander around yourself. You didn't really sort of see any other agents roaming around there. I assume they were just NPCs. However, in this particular situation, these are referred to as sort of like checkpoints or like, like mini bases that agents set up. And you can see here, there are 6 agents in total. Now we know that the team size in the division is 4. So of course this is larger than one group. But it clearly goes to show that the game does have social spaces where you can interact with other agents. Maybe this is a form of matchmaking. Perhaps you can go there, look at the players, see what gear they've got, talk to them and say, do you want to party up? I need some help on a mission. Or maybe it's just a way for everyone to meet up and go and refresh their supplies. Because of course, if you look at the back, there appears to be an NPC there, maybe like a merchant where you can go and buy things. Maybe that's weapons or armor or anything like that. So this is a pretty cool thing. I do think, however, despite the fact that it said these were set up by agents, I do still think these are NPC run and not necessarily like player bases, because otherwise you're going to have these popping up left, right and center. But either way, it's still pretty cool.
With them and work together. We have to rely on each other's strengths to save what remains and give New York a fighting chance at something we thought was lost. Hope. We need.
Now, stopping here for a second, you can firstly see if we zoom up to the top left they are on a tech mission because you have that sort of yellow lightning bolt there. But also if you look down below, it says contaminated zone required filter 1. I mentioned this before in a video I spoke about explaining contaminated zones, but this just goes to show they are near a level 1 contaminated area. And this is also a really cool shot of the underground.
Together and combine our skills. We each have a role to play in this fight.
Next up, pausing here for a second, of course anything we saw just before that was stuff we've seen before, so you know, the sentry turret or the seeker mine. But this here is quite obviously a cleaner, but the way that he came in with sort of epic cinematic makes him seem like he's much more of like an elite boss. So I imagine this is a very high level NPC, perhaps he's one of those ones that will drop some really nice loot, and I imagine this is therefore one of these slightly harder missions. Then next up, this skill here is of course the healing skill. You can fire a projectile towards your team or anywhere on the ground, and then it heals everything within the vicinity. So inside that green circle, everything is getting healed, which is of course great for supporting your team, and that is a medic skill. Next up, however, this is a brand new skill, and I believe this is under the security tree. This is like a sort of temporary barrier, like a temporary wall. You can put it up. It's different to the riot shield. It's not like the riot shield, which you can actually carry with you and walk. This one, on the other hand, is actually a barrier you put down, and it stays in that location. And as you can see here, you can actually use your primary weapon as opposed to being forced to use your pistol. So while this is a lot less mobile than the riot shield, it does of course have different uses. And of course, if you were looking for a direct comparison, this is of course the riot shield.
For a reason. Make no mistake. We are taking this city back.
And this scene right here finally answers our questions. For a long time we've been asking what this supposed super skill is, because we know that we can equip skills onto LB and RB, but there is also a third skill that equips to LB and RB. And right here we can see this skill in effect. Clearly it is a much more effective, much more potent skill, but given the size of the bar, I imagine it therefore also takes a lot longer to recharge. This one in particular is a group heal. It heals in a much wider radius, doesn't require that you fire anything on the ground, it simply heals people in a certain radius. However, the other thing worth noting is it also gets your teammates up. Typically, from what we saw at E3 during the hands-on demo, if your teammate goes down, you have to physically run up to them and get them up themselves. But if you have this skill here, you can actually get them up without having to go to them, which makes it great if you're pinned down or you're in a sticky situation or you're up against a really tough enemy. You don't have to go and put yourself in danger. You can simply use that skill and get your teammate up. The cool thing about this one is if we then compare that to the skill tree, you can see that this icon here matches the one in the medical tree. And given that this skill is the only one that is coloured green, it's therefore safe to assume that the yellow skill and the blue skill in the other two trees are the super skills for those respective branches. So it seems that once you hit 50% in any of those three branches, you'll unlock your super skill, and then from there is one more skill after that.
And on your journey, you will find a place beyond those walls. A dark zone where greed and fear corrupts, and no one can be trusted.
And then this one right here, this is a big one. This is a question that a lot of people have been asking. People have said that while we do know it is a third-person shooter, people have asked that when you use a sniper rifle or a weapon with a high zoom scope, will it put you in first person or will you need to snipe in third person? And this answers that question. You can clearly see here, they have what I assume is a high zoom or a sniper scope, and they are clearly aiming down sights. So that's some nice confirmation for you.
This fight is only the beginning.
And that is pretty much it. Now, yes, there was a hell of a lot of stuff to talk about in that trailer, and there may have been a few things that I missed. I'm going to go back through with a fine-tooth comb, and it may well be that in the next few days I do some more videos talking about anything else. But for the time being, that was a semi-quick overview of some of the stuff that was in that video. Let me know what you guys think down below. I, for one, didn't think it was possible to be even more hyped for this game, but watching this trailer got me so hyped. If you do want to see it without me talking over the top, again, remember you can find a link to it in the description box down below. But one last thing before I go, I actually want to let you guys know that tomorrow I'm flying out to Malmo in Sweden to go hands-on with the Division to hopefully get some information for you guys. And then when I come back, provided there isn't some kind of NDA that I'm not allowed to talk about, then hopefully I can give you guys even more information. Either way, for the time being, that is it. Again, if you guys did enjoy it, then a like would be super appreciated. And thank you very much for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.